When I was in Europe some months ago, I met a very remarkable German scholar who had studied Buddhism in Japan for a number of years and was reflecting on similarities between things that people experience as a result of their study of Buddhism and things that people experience in the course of their lives in the Western world. And he made a very interesting remark to me about experiences that had happened to various people during the calamities of the war. He said that there were three particular kind of instances which he had come across where people had found themselves in desperate situations. And as a result of thoroughly accepting these situations, they had had an experience of the profound joy, and you might almost say meaningfulness of life, that corresponds very closely indeed to the kind of experience that in Buddhism is called awakening or enlightenment, satori in Zen language, or liberation in Hinduism, or what we might sometimes call in the West mystical experience, the sensation of the individual finding himself one with God or with the ultimate reality behind the universe. And my friend then enumerated these three instances. He said there were the cases where a person heard a bomb coming up, and they heard the shriek of the bomb descending, and they were quite sure that this was their last moment. This was the end. They accepted it completely. They gave in to their own obliteration. But the bomb turned out to be a dud, or it missed and went somewhere else, and they survived. The second kind of instance was where people were prisoners of war or shut up in concentration camps and had come to the point of believing that they would never, never, never be released. They were in a state of complete despair. But again, they saw there was nothing to do except give into it, accept it completely to the point, you might almost say, of affirming it. And the same thing happened. And then the third instance he mentioned was when the disorganization and chaos of war had so uprooted people, had so destroyed everything that they'd built up for themselves by way of careers, professions, family, and everything like that, that they got the sensation that life in this world is totally meaningless, like Shakespeare's phrase, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And again, when they committed themselves to this and thoroughly accepted the idea that life was absolutely meaningless, there came this same extraordinary transformation of experience, this sense of joy, and in some strange and different way, a sense of the whole thing really having meaning. Now, I think that story is very interesting because we in the Western world are so concerned that our lives should be meaningful, that they should make sense. And indeed, one of the frequent definitions of mental health that you hear is that mental health depends on one's having a purpose in life and finding that life is meaningful. And this is fairly easy to preserve, provided one's life is not disrupted by great catastrophes like war. It's fairly easy to preserve on a small scale. That is to say, we find it fairly easy to make our lives meaningful and purposive in relation to our immediate community or in relation to our work, where we can do something that is a true vocation for us, or where in the community we can do things that are helpful to other people. But it's increasingly difficult to get this sense of the fundamental meaningfulness of things in a universe as it is now seen by contemporary science. In other words, when you enlarge the framework, it's more and more difficult to see any meaning in things. Because while we can see the significance of our lives over a few years, maybe 100 years, maybe 200, when we look at the thing in vast perspectives, When we see the human race as such a tiny little sort of bacillus living on an obscure piece of dust in a remote corner of the universe, when we see this enormous, almost cosmic nonsense of galaxies of radioactive material going around and around for colossal spans of time for no apparent purpose at all, in that perspective, it's particularly difficult for us to believe that life is fundamentally meaningful. And this is a real difficulty because it's so hard to see something that has real and abiding meaning against a background or as part of a whole system which seems to be basically nonsensical. But the interesting thing is that when we use these words, meaningless or purposeless of the universe, they have a bad feeling for us. They are sort of cuss words. They're bad words to use about life. But it's very different with people in the Far East, with certain schools of thought in China and Japan, where the word purposeless, the word meaningless, does not have a negative connotation at all, but rather the contrary, something very joyous and positive. There's an old Chinese philosophical text that uses the expression, if purpose can be used to achieve purposelessness, then the thing has been grasped. The thing meaning the whole point of life.